technology here, guys. They got an AI camera that is able to follow around a little bit. So good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Edwards. I'll be kind of going through the coaches training for Awana Games, which is coming up in a couple of months. And so welcome for those of you online, in person. I'm looking at two different cameras, a live audience, and two different screens. And so I'll try to kind of keep my my eyes focused as much as I can. As Tom said, for those of you online, what my plan is I'll kind of go through kind of the overview. I'll stop and ask for any questions, and then I'll go through kind of each event, and then I'll pause and ask for questions, both from those who are here and then also online. And so I'll do my best to kind of answer and kind of keep track of everything. But if you can give me just a little bit of grace because of everything going on, that would be great. I also I'm a little bit more animated, so it's hard for me to stand still. So I feel like that's why I like this new camera, and it'll kind of hopefully follow me around. So, but if you can't quite see all of me, that's okay. But yeah, thanks for being here for kind of our coaches training. I just did a line judges and circle director training, so that'll be posted on the GLM website. You'll be able to kind of watch that if you are interested in that. But going to cover a lot of kind of the same things in the coaches training, yeah, we'll kind of go from there. So welcome. Our Awana Games goal, just so you guys know, number one, to bring boys, girls, moms, dads, and other family members to the Lord. That's really what, if we could just get one unsaved who will about to be a follower of Christ, or one unsaved person to join us in entering the kingdom of God, and we'll say it was a successful event. And so that's really what our number one goal is. And number two, see goal number one. That's really what our goal is. Obviously, we have an outline for the event, which we'll go through. But again, like I said, that's really what we want to kind of focus on and what our objective is for the Awana Games. So the spiritual application. So our objective to create an opportunity for unsaved relatives to hear the gospel. So anybody who comes who may not be a church person or a church family, or still, again, hasn't been able to hear or accept the gospel. Hopefully this will be an opportunity for them to do that, and to motivate clubbers in their participation in Awana. So our goal is that our event is started on time, conducted efficiently, and run well. And the result is our spectators will sense that they have attended a well-executed event, which will help enhance the presentation of the gospel message that we have during the event. Winning is not the ultimate goal, but more creating an atmosphere that enhances the gospel presentation. That's what our goal is. So our goal is that it will honor the Lord. 1 Timothy 4:8 says, "For bodily exercise provides little, but godliness is profitable unto all things, having promise of the life that now is and of that which is to come." So general information, I wanted to kind of go through that with you guys. So our cost, we haven't changed this really in a long time. $3 per spectator. That just helps us cover the cost of kind of renting the facility and running the event. Team members, coaches, pre-K children will be admitted for free. Pastors and their spouses will be admitted for free. I know Dave has talked in the past about if someone does show up and they don't have the funds to be able to do that, our goal is really to create an atmosphere and an experience for everybody to come. So I know Dave's going to cover that.
Yeah, one of the things that if it turns out the family is dealing with unemployment or has other financial issues, we will happily admit them in for free. I mean, it's not that hard for us to be able to absorb that, but we don't want to have everybody walking past not paying. The past couple of years, we haven't been flagging people down as they go past, and we've also had about half the revenue that we would be getting in compared to what we would be coming in. When we were at the church that was not charging us much for the rental, that was kind of like, well, okay. This year we're having to pay rental fees because we are going to Mooseheart. And so it is going to be more important for us to be able to have that cost recovered. If it turns out that it's just an honest mistake, great. And we also will try to have a QR code to be able to pay to the account directly if it turns out you don't have cash. Did you get that? Okay.
We're good. Didn't follow your feet. And the coach's training, the camera followed his feet off, and then we had to manually readjust. So Determining circle assignments. So just to let you guys know, the Awana Games teams will be seated according to their finish in previous year's meets, if applicable. It's not perfect, but it's all we have. So we try to do our due diligence and kind of look at history, both from the previous year, but also, stacking up multiple years. We want to try to have the team assignments, circle assignments, as equally competitive as possible. So we try to pair up new churches who this is maybe their first time, or we know, maybe they didn't have the opportunity to practice a lot, things like that. So as coaches, it's really important that you're just in communication with us. You'll see several emails as we get closer to the event. That's the best way to communicate. If you're concerned and hey, either our church or where we meet doesn't have the opportunity to even host one practice and all we do it is on club night, let us know that, so that, the more information that we have, the better chance we have at kind of creating it as equal or as even as a playing field as possible. And that's what one of our goals is. Volunteers, this is really important. So we need each church to supply 2 volunteers per registered team to help staff the event. One of them should be a line judge or an usher. Every year we're kind of scrambling to get line judges. Really important that we have enough to be able to run the event. I'll tell you, as a circle director, it's really challenging to try to run a circle and do a team at the same time. And so we do need line judges. It's a need every year. And so please help us with that. If you're going to have multiple teams, multiple Division II or Division IV teams, we're looking for 2 volunteers per team. So if you're sending 3 teams, we need 6 volunteers. And that's not the coaches that are volunteering to run the team. That's actually to help us staff the event and to be able to execute everything. And we need everything from scorekeepers to runners to number hangers, you name it. If you haven't been part of the games program, we need all of those things. So again, it's all in the communication for that. Each volunteer will need to check in at the volunteer table and have their day of event form filled out and signed. We have paper copies here for those of you who are here. They're on the website. We will have them the day of the event. If you could fill them out ahead of time, that will make things just go faster the day of the event when you show up to help. And then please make sure your volunteers know that you have volunteered them. Every year, we have the volunteer list and we go to the coaches or whoever we've been in contact with the church, and the person is like, oh, I didn't even know I was volunteering. You're like, oh yeah, that person's not here. And so don't just put a name down just for the sake of putting it down. Please make sure that they know that they're volunteering and what job that they're doing. And so
and their current email address.
Yes, and their current email address is going to be important too, because that's how we're going to stay in contact with them. So location. So we are going to be at Moose Heart in Batavia, and it is March 28th. Yes, right? March 28th?
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we do have the new venue this year. In terms of some of the mechanics of that new location, there is not a lot of handicap parking by the door, which probably means that people who need to have that extra assistance may need to park in the fire lane and then get the people in and get the people back out. Sometimes they may not move their car. That does not mean that people who are just wanting to park close can use the fire lane. Please don't park in the fire lane. We will see what to be able to do if the parking lot does fill up. There are a couple of streets that feed into it that are very close. There may be a little bit of a further walk. You may have to drop someone off and then come around and find a parking spot. But please don't park on grass. Please don't park in the football field that's near there. Please don't try to park inside the building. I'm not sure what else I can say to please not to do. In the past, we had to have volunteers outside to tell people don't park in the fire zone. And it was a fireman. So he was very adamant about not parking in fire zones because they take those things personally. We don't want to have someone not see the games and see their grandchildren or children because we can't get people to avoid parking in that spot. We also, in the past, at past venues, we lost access to a venue because we did damage to their landscaping. So please only park in areas that are assigned. I'm not going to be able to put up a no parking sign in every single spot that is not a no parking zone because we just don't have enough signage. So don't park in the grass unless it's authorized, like on the side of the road leading in.
Perfect. Thank you. This year, so teams, obviously it's all to be determined based on who registers, how many registers. As we kind of get that out, we'll get communication to you on what divisions, how many we're looking for, what that looks like. And as I talked about earlier, teams will be matched with churches of similar size and experience.
Registration will be open Monday.
Registration will be open Monday. If you guys online did not hear Tom, I know for those of you in the house here did, but so Monday is when registration will open. We'll get communication out to you guys as a reminder of that. So policies. Okay, so only 2 coaches are going to be allowed per team. So you see the little asterisk. Here's what we've talked about in the past is if you have got a child or children on your team that need additional assistance for whatever reason, whether that's medically, behaviorally, you guys know your teams. We trust you that you're going to make the right decision on that. The only thing we ask is day of event, just let the line judges, circle directors know, because during my line judge training, I talked about we got to make sure we limit to 2 coaches per team. Because we don't have enough room on the lines, especially if we have multiple flights going to kind of house everybody who wants to come. But we understand that there may be some unique circumstances. Just let us know. But kind of as a general guideline or a rule, 2 coaches per team. For Sparks, coaches are allowed on the floor to kind of quickly place or position your players. TNT coaches are allowed out of the playing area only during the tug to encourage their team. So other than that, you need to be kind of behind your line as coaches. There should be, like I said, 2 per team. One should be focused on the current event. The other one should be focused on the next event, getting the next group of kids ready to help us continue to go through. Obviously, if we have multiple flights, you'll have time in between each one to do that. But if we only have 1 flight, it's important to make sure that we're kind of, one coach is focused on current event, 1 coach is focused on the next one, keeping the team in line. For Trek and Journey, the rule is coaches have to stay completely behind the team line for the entire duration of the event. No spectators allowed inside the team area. It may or may not be roped off. Our goal is to have it roped off, but depending on the facility size every year and what that looks like and what the requirements are of us from the venue, it's really important to make sure that any of the playing area is only for not for spectators, only for people who have gone through the child protection policy and then have signed a form for us. And again, that's for the protection of the event, the ministry, and the children that are on there. So.
And I have been told I am the rudest person that people have ever encountered when people are in the wrong area and refuse to leave. I'm happy with that. I've worked with lawyers for over 40 years. There's very little that you can say to me that hasn't been said to me. There's very little that you can destroy of me that is left. I will be happy to be able to escort you off. And we do have a nice friendly notice that Tom came up with, which was, if we report you, you get to explain to your employer why you were in violation of our child protection policy. And we will. It is something that just because something is, maybe we managed to not put up all of the chain through every single thing on the face of the earth, doesn't mean that you can just jump over the rope that has fallen and come into there. If we ask you to leave a space, people need to be leaving the space. We also don't want to have street shoes on the floor. So if people want to be taking the pictures of the team with the background, line judges and the circle directors, and I can help you take those pictures with your camera or with your phone or phones, because no one seems to be able to know how to share a picture. And we will be happy to do that for you. However, you may not come onto the floor, especially if you're wearing high heels and damaging the floor. So you do the same dance again.
We're good.
Hey.
Water bottles. So this is something really important, coaches. I know, as I said in the line judges meeting, we live in a world now where water bottles are like attached to everybody, school, sporting events, all that stuff. We have nothing against water. Water is the best thing that you could drink. But water creates a significant issue, not only for the facility, for the floor, but it's a clear liquid. And you guys all know during games that, some of those games move fast. We run quick. Clear liquid is almost impossible to spot on a shiny wood gym floor. And so we are asking that there are no water bottles of any type on the floor with the team, even if they're in a bag off to the side. Just water bottles stay with the parents or in a bag that is over in the stands to make sure, just strictly from a safety standpoint, we don't have any issues. This is important, coaches. You'll have plenty of time. Hopefully you'll get there early, get your team started, set up, use the restroom before we start the event. So we're asking that no bathroom breaks during the event, and then no running to the stands to get a water bottle or take a drink. So those two things are really important. I know kids get thirsty, especially if they're running and they're excited, but it is a relatively short event in the grand scheme of time. And I promise you, your kids will be fine if they don't get a drink over a 30-minute period. It's okay. And so we're asking for those two things. I know I have 6 kids myself. Thankfully, they're all older and I don't have issues now with restroom breaks, but I remember those days where, no, I don't have to go to the bathroom. And 5 minutes later, they're about to wet their pants. And so we know that stuff happens. But as just, again, a general rule, it's really important to do that. We cannot stop games because of it. So we had an issue a few years ago where somebody went to the restroom and they were supposed to be their marathon runner. And we said, either you pick another kid or you just don't run the race. And so they threw another kid in there. And so I don't want that to happen as well. So just make sure that your kids are ready to go, restroom break, and that they understand, hey, you're hydrated enough. It'll be okay for the next 30 minutes. Players not participating in the event have to stay back behind their team color line and be seated. I know, especially with our Sparkies, sometimes they get really antsy and be kind of jumping around. Again, why it's important to have 2 coaches on the line to kind of keep that. We don't want any interference or any even inadvertent issues. I've had, meets where, kids were kind of sitting, I say Indian style still, but crisscross applesauce, but their legs are straight out over the line and somebody comes around and is passing someone and they trip over them. Obviously wasn't intentional, but interference. And so A, from a safety standpoint, but B, just, for the sake of the game, we want to make sure that all of that is good. And so making sure that they stay completely behind their team line and stay seated. If you have a contested call as a coach, comes up every year, making sure that it's done through the chain of command with a proper spirit, which honors the Lord. And so I'm going to go through that real quick and so here's kind of our chain of command for the Awana games. So we have our event coordinator, which is also typically our MC, who's kind of running the event. Then we have our circle director. They're going to have an orange shirt on. And then we have our line judges that will have purple shirts on. Timers and scorekeepers are going to be kind of off to the side reporting the circle director. Then we have our coaches and then our players. I'll tell you, almost every year as a circle director, I will have a kid come up to me for some reason, whether they were disqualified, someone else got in their way, whatever the case may be. And I very politely kind of, hey, go talk to your coach. I've had coaches run out onto the floor as the circle director, and I will say, talk to your line judge. Usually when it's that intense, we're already discussing it and talking about it. One of the things that I went through during the line judges training that we will commit to is talking to you as coaches on why we made a call or why something happened. So, if you still have questions, then we can talk about it together. Here's what I'll tell you guys, and I told the line judges too, is that as circle directors, we've got about 80% of our focus on the current game and current event, and then 20% thinking about the next event. That's kind of how, our brains operate. As soon as the current event is done, our brain is focused on moving forward to the next event and the one after. It's impossible to try to go back a game or 2 games and try to talk through things. So if you have a question, it's really important you grab your line judge. They'll be right on the kind of end of the triangle at the head of where your team should be. And then we should go from there. What I will share with you that we, our commitment as circle directors, line judges, is that if there is a disqualification, we will let you know what and why. And we'll do our best to kind of, if a beanbag is across the plane or a foot crossed, kind of pointing it out so you can see it as a coach. in real time, as the best that we can. And if, we're not able to do that, be able to at least communicate to you guys, hey, we had to disqualify this team because of this. So every team will be awarded 2 points for good sportsmanship for each event, unless they act in an unsporting manner. I know 2 years ago we had to dock some points from a team because we gave multiple warnings. There's a little bit of taunting going on. So, every team will score 2 points for each event. Unless there's any issues, again, we'll have conversations with you as coaches before we do deduct any points, and we'll make sure that that we did and why. Usually comes with several warnings, but just so you guys know about that. A horn's going to be used for all of our events. Sparkies the plan is to use a computerized whistle. And then for tug, our air horn will be used again, just overhead. We'll try to turn the volume up because there's a lot of screaming and a lot of going on during the tug for that aspect, but that's how we're going to kind of run that. So for qualifications, only those participants who meet the age requirements, pass 10 sections, and have a signed parental consent form are allowed to participate. So they need to be registered in the club. So within the age group for both Sparks and TNT, we don't want a 6th grader participating in Sparks. And so we have had in the past where we've had some Sparkies participate in TNT. That's fine to participate up. If you need like an extra player, you're short a 3rd grader or 4th grader grabbing a 2nd grader from Sparks, that's fine. We just can't go the opposite direction. Same thing, we wouldn't put a Trek or Journey kid on our TNT team. So that's kind of the age requirement. We have the past 10 sections. We really have that just so the team is invested. Way back in the day when this was ultra competitive, when I was a kid, I didn't know all this was going on when I was, 9, 10, 11 years old. But churches would recruit the best athlete from the middle school just to come participate in the games to win. I haven't seen that in a long time. But we really want these to be kind of, clubbers who have come to club more than just one time and they're, a big kid and are going to help us crush tug, really focus on kind of the core club. And so that's why we have that 10 sections. We're not going to audit books. We're not going to, check on that. We're just trusting you as coaches, again, to use your best judgment. And what we're looking for is kind of that fair and equal kind of playing field that we're looking for from all of our churches. So, and then again, the parental consent form. So all of our forms, for those of you here, are in the back. We also have them up on the website as we email out and send links and stuff. We'll have those, but those will have to be turned in with your team packet on the day of the event. Dress code, this is really important. So all participants and coaches must wear sneakers or tennis shoes. So I know we already talked about no high heels, no dress shoes, damages the floor. And so everybody who's going to be on the floor is going to be participating. Make sure. I feel like every year some kid shows up in Crocs or some sort of open heel shoes. We're there to run around a circle and have fun. Let's make sure that we're in dress code. Clothing needs to be modest. So again, coaches, we're trusting you for your kids to be able to make sure that happens. Where we typically see it a little bit more is probably more on the Trek and Journey side of it. So please make sure if you've got those teams, but for all teams, make sure, that our clubbers are dressed modestly. Clothing requirements are going to be checked during the check-in and prior to the first event. Circle directors will make the final decision on whether a clubber participates or not. And then again, for coaches, make sure that you are dressing modestly as well. Setting the example is really important for our clubbers and for everybody at the event. Arrival, teams need to arrive at least 45 minutes before the event begins. We're going to get in a little bit later, kind of the timeline prior to start of the event with getting onto the circle or coaches meeting, things like that. But at least 45 minutes prior to the event, your teams, your kids. And so if you've got a kid who's chronically late, maybe tell them an hour before or whatever that looks like, communicating with parents. As we talked about, it's out in Batavia. It's at Mooseheart, so new venue. So make sure you jump in your maps and figure out what that looks like. It's early on a Saturday morning. Traffic shouldn't be too bad, but just take that into consideration when driving there. I talked about this already a little bit, but just to review, one coach will take the team roster, parental consent forms, and day event volunteer forms to team check-in, where they will be checked and collected. We're going to make sure everything has a signature on it and that each player is represented in there. We will have a coaches meeting 15 minutes before the event starts. And so coaches need to have their team on their line no later than 15 minutes before the event starts. So the goal is like 20 minutes. We'll make overhead announcements to let everybody know. But the goal is to have everybody on the line about 20 minutes ahead. So all the coaches, line judges, circle director can meet in the middle about 15 minutes before the event starts to just re-go through the rules, ask for any final questions. We'll ask if there's any need to share players. That happens every year. You have just enough players for your division and somebody is sick, somebody can't show up, last minute change. That's okay. So typically we'll share players. Obviously it's up to the other churches to agree to that. It's never been a problem before, but also don't count on it. Because other churches may say like, no, like our kids, we need them rested for our events. But there's usually a kid or two that they're willing to kind of just give up to be a placeholder, maybe in an event that doesn't require a lot of skill or things like that. But just so you guys know on that. So we're going to be checking for that as we have our kind of coaches meeting. So before we roll into kind of the event now, does anybody have any questions either here or online that from what I've covered so far? Yes.
For the clothing, like modesty, yes. We told our team last year that they had to wear long pants, and they got there and other teams wearing shorts, and they're like, "What's the deal?" So, does anyone care, shorts or pants?
For those of you online, I'll repeat the question. The Dave's going to come up in chat. So, the question came up. We had a team say, "Hey, from a modest clothing standpoint, everybody has to wear pants," but then they showed up in other teams. Some people were wearing shorts and things like that. So, Dave will address that.
My preference would be some variation on sweatpants / athletic wear things, but even that can be immodest. Hopefully doing the reminder now will be enough to be able to tell people, hey, please wear something. I'm not going to say it has to come down to the ankle, but I am going to say it should be something along the lines of sweatpants would be better. Several years ago, we had the trend of kids wanting to put rubber bands on the sweatpants to do whatever, and that became an issue. There were other ones. The kids are going to figure out a way to be able to individualize it beyond how we can be able to legislate it. But I would suggest strongly some variation on sweatpants. If it turns out that a child honestly doesn't have sweatpants, the longest shorts you got, would probably be okay. And I mean, me growing up, I never had sweatpants. It just was not done, period. And not just because we're Norwegian. It was just, that's just the way it was done. And so if they said it, we would have had to go off and buy them. And one of the reasons why I didn't participate in soccer was because I would have to buy shorts. And that was something that my mother would had a hard time doing. I would rather have a kid come wearing shorts than have them not come. So that's kind of the world that we're trying to balance between. Yes, we want them to be wearing something that's modest, but if it turns out that means that they can't come, I would rather have them come. That's kind of the two things are coming to. And now we're about to do a dance, which is probably also one of the things that was banned when I was growing up. Certainly by my college, which is now closed. But now I can step into here. You can step in.
What are we doing?
You step in front of here. That's the dance, and then.
Oh, I thought we were actually doing a dance.
Oh no, that is the dance. That is the dance move. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, good. All right. Awesome. So clear as mud on that answer, and use your discretion. That's a big thing. All right. So we're going to continue on. So opening.
Wait,
ceremony.
I do have a quick. I'm sorry. I have a
Yes.
quick question. You said that we're using a horn for TNT. Is that correct?
Yeah,
start all
not an
games?
actual like horn, but the computerized horn, like
The
over
computer.
the PS.
Okay. There was just some confusion last year on what was being used, and so I know it personally for my team, it was like, wait, what are we using? And so we were delayed a few of the times because we weren't sure what we were listening for. So a horn, but you said for Sparks, it's going to be a computer whistle instead.
Yes, Davis, I wasn't there last year. I ended up missing it, so I'm not sure, but they will address that.
Yeah, we couldn't get the horn on the electronic to get loud enough within
Okay.
the system that was there. And so we did go to an air horn to be using it. Hopefully the sound system will allow us to be able to do the electronic horn. That's what we prefer to use.
Okay.
If we have to use the air horn, we have to use air horn. Everyone is equally disadvantaged with the air horn. The biggest disadvantage of the air horn is that thing is loud when it's close to you. And I can tell you that I was standing too close to it at one point, and Tom accidentally set it off, and I was like, whoa, whoa. I would love to use the electronic, but if it turns out that there's too much crowd noise and we can't hear it over the crowd noise, we'll have to go to that.
Okay.
Great question. All right, everybody else, we're good? Okay. All right, opening ceremony. So team needs to be lined up on their line, like I said, no later than 15 minutes prior to the start of the events. We'll have our coaches meeting, and then we're going to participate in our opening ceremony. Players and coaches need to know 2 Timothy 2:15. I know we have it up here on the King James version. You know, I know there's several different versions that are clubbers. We just want them to be able to say it. So the big thing with this, coaches, is as you're participating with your teams at practice, a great thing to just get in the practice of is, you know, flag ceremony, 2 Timothy 2:15 for TNT. Sparks will be John 3:16, and we have the Sparky Yell, which we'll get to. But for those of you doing Sparks, but TNT Truck and Journey, 2 Timothy 2:15, and then we're going to go through and start the event. So every year, I feel like we have to like, okay, that wasn't loud enough. Like, let's really let everybody hear it, and so let's practice at your practices. 2 Timothy 2:15. So. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So again, that's the King James version. But you know, practice that as you're practicing as coaches. Awards. So our goal this year, as you may or may not know, you know, Awana doesn't make a lot of awards anymore for the games, or any. I don't even know, Dawn, if they don't make any. And so the team here has been working really hard on Facebook Marketplace, these Awana Facebook pages of kind of trying to get stuff from anybody who has them around the country and getting them shipped to us to try to piece together enough awards to continue to provide them for not only this, but also for Bible quizzing. But our goal is that the first place team will receive medallions, second, third, fourth will receive a ribbon. I don't know, I think we have enough patches this year for the uniforms, maybe. We'll kind of see how that goes, but our goal is to be able to continue to provide at least some sort of award, medal, patch, ribbon for our participants as they kind of participate in the games. All right, now we're going to go into rules. So we'll go through each game, but just rule clarifications in general. For Sparks, we're going to use a center pin in a beanbag. So the orange pin and the striped beanbag will be in the center. TNT Trek Journey will have the touch pins that will be in the center. As I talked about my line judges training, for anybody who's new, you know, back in the day for TNT Trek Journey, we used to use the center pin and beanbag. And then after enough concussions, broken shoulders, arms, we went to touch pins, which I think is smart. That's why we use the two different ones. For Sparks, it's not quite as competitive, not quite as fast. So we're still using the center pin and beanbag. For Sparks and TNT, all players must participate in at least 3 and no more than 6 events. What I shared with the line judges is this is kind of just a general overview and a rule. We understand that you may have kids on your teams that may have physical or mental disabilities, that it's not safe for them or the other kids to participate in even just 3 games. And so we understand that, but what we don't want to have, what we're trying to avoid, is the biggest, fastest kid running every single race. And that creates a big disadvantage for the other teams. And so that's kind of, again, just general rule. If you have specific questions or specific situations during that coaches meeting at inside the circle before the event starts, is where, you know, we will communicate, we will talk through that. If it's going to be a more lengthy or you have specific questions or specific needs, probably talking to the circle director or line judge even before that meeting. That way we don't kind of eat up that whole time just talking about your individual situation. Again,
or email me in advance.
Yep. I was just going to say, or email ahead of time. And so we know any type of those kind of unique situations. But as a general rule, again, that's what we're kind of looking for. Tag rule only applies during the 3-legged race. When we get to that event, we'll kind of talk through that. So as we talk about, this comes up every year for, kind of disqualification purposes. So as I talked in the line judges training, pretend the tape is kind of like the neutral zone or a safety zone, however you want to call it. Behind the line or on the line is okay. When we measure out the Awana circle, we put the tape, the outside edge of the tape, at the marking that it's supposed to be. So instead of like a little Sharpie line, we have a big thing of tape because it's a lot easier to be able to see if someone crossed the line. So it's literally cross the line, not on the line. And so direction of play, you can see in the arrow. So that is, during, basketball relay, beanbag relay, beanbag bonanza, beanbag in and out, all of those things, crossing the circle in or the triangle, their back foot coming out. And then for things like balloon relay, going backwards. So the back of the heel versus the front of the toe. So it's physically crossing the outside edge of the tape. And that's what, again, we're training our line judges, circle directors on, just so you guys know. So if someone stepped on the line, that doesn't mean that they're disqualified. The other thing that I'll share with you, coaches, is that pretend this is an invisible line that goes up to the ceiling. Where we typically see that happen is during beanbag relay or basketball relay, where the player has their foot in the triangle and they lift it up and break the plane. So that is the same thing as dragging it on the floor across the plane, just because it's not a piece of tape on the ground. So if they lift up their foot and break the plane, that's breaking the plane because it's an imaginary line kind of coming up. So again, our goal as line judges, circle directors, is to be able to point it out, call it out immediately when it happens in games where it's safe to do so, where it's not going to impede the rest of the event. We'll try to kind of get in front and stop the event and let you know right away what happened and why. But just to let you guys know that that's what breaking the plane is. Any questions in-house or online about this specifically? Good. Okay. All right. We're going to go through the games real quick. So we'll start with Spark-Sorama. This one, Sparky Crawl. So everybody lines up evenly across. If you look at the diagram, this is one thing I know that comes up every year. Churches sometimes tend to bunch their kids up to one side. It's not how the game is designed. So the kids need to be evenly spread out across. So even if we only have 5 kids, if it's a Division 4 team, we want to be in Division 1 of 15, but we'll have 10 or 5 depending on how things work. They're kind of lined up equally across. We will blow the whistle, and the Sparkies will crawl all the way across. And so it's really important, coaches. This is why we want 2 coaches per team. One coach will stay on the one side, one coach will go to the other side of the square, and so the opposite side, because you'll be the one kind of teaching the Sparks or having them go in. So the rule book states that they just have to break the plane. So as soon as their hand is across, their whole body does not have to be across that line. As soon as their hand or their finger crosses, you can send your Sparky into the middle. Here's what I'll tell you guys. We usually have multiple kids. Everybody's excited going in. Make sure you practice this. 1 kid on the first heat, 1 kid on the second heat. So we're looking for a girl to go in on the first heat, a boy on the second heat. So if you have a team of all girls or all boys, we'll talk about that at the coaches meeting at the day of the event. Haven't seen that happen before, but make sure that as you look at the rule books and review this, it specifically talks about which heat. So girls are typically first, and then boys are second. And so that's for, this event, Sparky Train, those type of events. So girl first, and then we crawl back to the other side, and then a boy will go in for the pin on that one. So the expectation is if you only have 5 girls or 5 boys, it's a different player then. So 1 girl will go in on the first one, you crawl back, a different girl will go in on the second, or vice versa if you have a team of all boys. you have different players going in. But if you have a boy and a girl, girl's got to go in first, boy second, team of all the same, then it would be two different kids essentially. Okay. Any questions on that? Sparky Crawl online? Okay. All right, Sparky Safari. So this one is where we have the animals. They are not going to be really big animals like this flamingo, for those of you who see me. They're really little animals. And then the bucket that we use is a small rubber one. It's pretty close to the floor, so it's not going to tip over unless someone literally like kicks it across the floor. It's not one of those big plastic buckets that falls over easily. So it's not going to be an issue where it's going to fall over and the animals are going to fall out. As a reminder, players 1 through 4 each start with an animal. The 5th player has nothing to start, but they're going to collect all 4 and run around. A couple of things with this event as coaches would love your help with as you're teaching your kids. And it happens every year. And I know we can train and coach as many times as possible, but the worst injuries we've seen in Sparks is on this event, because what typically happens is they drop an animal either in the exchange or they get around and somebody yells, you dropped it. And their initial instinct is to turn around and run full speed the opposite direction of what everybody else is running. And we've seen some pretty bad collisions happen. And so, you know, if there's an animal that's on the ground, I'm going to work with the line judges on, hey, if you see it drop and it's close to you, like pick it up and get it off the floor, because that way, if at least the kid starts running back, you can keep them kind of towards the outside of the circle. You know, hand it off to the next kid in that, you know, on that team, if you saw who actually dropped it. But what we want to try to avoid is 2 kids running full speed at each other, and the one kid looking down at the animal that they're about to pick up, and the other kid is like looking at his teammate on who he's going to hand off to, and then we have a pretty bad collision. So do your best as you're coaching your Sparkies on this event to try to hold on really tight. They're really small animals. They're literally like this big. And so even for our little kindergartners, it shouldn't be an issue for them to hold on to, but it happens all the time. But this is the one event that just has me a little bit nervous from a safety standpoint with your clubbers. But essentially they run around each one, and then we used to put the bins or the buckets in the triangle. But if you look on our diagram here, when you're coming around the red pin, the natural, you know, line sight is actually in the yellow triangle because it's to the right of the pin. And since we come around the right, so we moved it a few years back and it works great. It's on the 8-foot line right in front of, you know, on your color line. So it's really easy. So when you're practicing this before the games with your church and with your teams, as is the diagram, put your bucket on that 8-foot line instead of in the triangle. The rule book still says the triangle, but we want it on that 8-foot line because that's where it's going to be on the day of the event. And it'll, again, allow the kids not to accidentally put it in the wrong thing. So another thing is just from a rule standpoint, we have to, you have to make sure the animals, there needs to be 4 animals and they all need to be in the bucket. So as I talked about the line judges, we're not going to disqualify a lot of events for the Sparkies. If we knock a pin over, we're just going to set it back up. It's not like TNT Trek and Journey. But, you know, we have to make sure that all the animals are in the bucket. So this would be one of the events where we wouldn't, you know, we'd have to disqualify if there's not 4 animals or if they threw them down and they all kind of scattered. So the rule is in the bucket. They all need to be in the bucket. If one of them's kind of hanging over, as long as it's not fully out of it, that's okay. But as you guys coach your teams, I would encourage them to just, hey, your focus is to get it in the bucket and then grab the pin. And everything happens so fast, and maybe it's a close race and they're just focusing on the pin, but in the bucket and then take the pin. If they're in the bucket, they grab the pin and they realize and they put it back in, you know, before the next person comes in, that's okay. But if other players have come in before they realize, then, you know, we got to call it as it is. So make sure everything's in the bucket. And then same thing with the Sparky Crawl. So first heat girls, second heat boys. So again, you know, this is assuming a Division I team where you've got 15 kids, 5 girls, 5 boys. So we're just looking for the last player to be a girl in the first heat, last player to be a boy in the second heat. It doesn't have to be all boys, all girls. Again, just from a fairness standpoint. Any questions on that, either online or in-house? Good. Okay. All right, balloon battle. So coaches, this is where you get to participate. The line judges will not be holding the ropes. This is, they have to be keeping an eye and counting the balloon hits. So we'll need one coach. Please identify who that's going to be before we get to the event. My recommendation would be not to switch in between heats, or in between heats. Because it just creates a little bit of hassle. So one coach is going to hold the rope. So you'll see on here each color. And then the line judge is actually going to be tracking how many times the balloon hits. You can line up your kids however you want. You can see in the diagram, there's 5 different ways to line your kids up. That's your call as a coach. You know, put your tallest kid in the front, put your tallest kid in the back, whatever that looks like. Another thing too, just as you're practicing this game, I would recommend you kind of work with your kids. The triangle all the way to your line is your whole zone. Because there's only 5 players and they're Sparkies and they're usually really small. A lot of times we think that beyond the circle, the white circle line, those hits don't count, or that place like doesn't exist. If a balloon hits back there, it's part of it. So the line judges, circle director are going to try to keep the balloons moving. If one gets way back out there and hits the ground, we'll run it back into the middle. But the play zone actually goes all the way out to the color line beyond the circle. So as you guys are practicing that, I would recommend just making sure you do that. And again, big thing for you coaches, make sure that you are identifying who's going to hold the rope before we get to that, so that way we can kind of keep the game moving. So any questions on this event? Good. All right. Sparky in and out. So for Division 1, which we won't have, starts in the Sparky's hand. Division 2, it's going to start actually in the bucket. So you'll see on the diagram, we have the bucket inside the square, or inside the triangle, inside the small square. But so basically what's going to happen is each Sparky is going to run in, pick up the beanbag, hand off to the next Sparky. So this one, again, we talked to the line judges, you know, unless it's an egregious, leaving like 3 steps too early, we're going to try to not disqualify during this. But, you know, if we see repetitive, violations, we're going to have to call it, because it is not fair that, you know, if every player takes 2 steps into the circle before having the beanbag, that's a significant advantage to that team. So as you're coaching and training your teams, you don't leave the white circle line until you have the beanbag in your hand. So you can be reaching over the line, which I would recommend as you're coaching, but the beanbag has to be in hand before your foot crosses the line to go into the center. Same thing with the other events that we talked about. For the first heat, there should be a girl at the end, so going in for the pin. The second heat should be a boy. So, and again, if you have all girls, all boys, a different player at the end. The beanbag does not need to go in the bucket at the end. That's probably the most common frustration coaches have, is that they've trained their team to put it back in the bucket, and that causes them to get 2nd or 3rd place. What the line judges are actually going to be looking for is, does the kid have the beanbag in their hand when they have the pin? Because that lets us know they have the right amount of ins and outs. It's not against the rules to put it into it, and hopefully the line judge will see that and pick it up. But you know, it's an extra step that has to happen before grabbing it. So I would recommend it when I coach Sparky teams, you know, the beanbag's in this hand, you're picking the pin up with this hand. And so just a reminder for that. It's the most common kind of thing that I come across as a circle director. So beanbag should be in the hand, so we can, you know, make sure we have the right amount of hands up. Doesn't have to be, but it does not have to go into the bucket. So questions on this one? Event 5 is going to be rabbit hunt. And so, we're going to go red, blue, green, and yellow. So that's the order that we're going to call the teams in. This is an event where you can only have, so for, a Division 2, it's 10, Division 4 is 5. You can only have that many Sparkies in the middle on your team, but everybody else can participate. So example, if you've got a Division 2 team, which is 10 to 12 Sparkies, sometimes I know you might have 13 or 14, all 14 can participate on the outside, but inside, when it's your team's turn to go, you can only have the 10. Or in a Division 4 team, you can only have the 5. So if you have a Division 4 team, it's 5 Sparkies, but you have 7 on your team. All 7 can be on the outside while another team or the other 3 teams are in the middle. But when your team is in the middle, you have to identify the correct number, either 5 or 10, depending on if you're a Division II or a Division IV team. We're going to be using these foam balls. So headshots count. I don't know if you use like kickballs or bricks in your club. I'd recommend not having headshots count for those. But on the day of the event, these things will not hurt anybody. If they duck, if they get hit in the head, it's literally a sponge. We contemplated using, our friend Mr. Flamingo here. But if you got hit in the head by either one of these, it's not going to hurt. And so I know a lot of schools and that stuff say, play now with dodgeball and stuff like that. Headshots don't count. It's not going to be an issue for us. Here's the big thing from a coaching standpoint that I would recommend for your teams. We want our kids and we teach them to be honest. And if they get hit by a ball or they touch a ball in the middle and they're out, Sparkies are usually pretty good and honest about moving out. But they don't know if the player, took a whole step in front of the line. And so I always recommend coaching your Sparkies. Don't leave until a line judge or myself as your coach tells you to come out. So, because again, they're not going to be able to see it. We have 4 line judges as a circle director on each circle. So we have 5 people watching 2 balls. It'd be pretty easy to see. Here's what I'll tell you guys too. Teach your Sparkies that it's like hot lava. Like, don't touch a ball in the middle, because if the ball is in the middle and they go to kick it to the outside, they're out. Because that ball was thrown in at some point. So even if the ball is not moving, if they touch the ball or the ball touches them, they're out. If it bounces off another kid, hits the floor first, anytime the ball touches them and it was a legitimate throw into the circle, even if a ball is stationary, it counts as out. The other thing is make sure that as coaches, usually what happens is we end the game. Everybody's really excited that they were still in the middle and they run back to their color line. If they're still in, we need them in the middle. The line judges are going to try to corral them as best as possible. Circle director will count how many and communicate that to the scorekeepers. So with this event, the more Sparkies you have in the middle, the higher the score. And so if you can just coach your teams on making sure they stay in the middle until either line judges or coach kind of calls them out on this. So one other rule or question a lot of coaches have, if a ball is, can a Sparky run in, pick up the ball and run back out? The answer is yes. They just have to go back outside the circle before they throw. So, gameplay moves faster. There's more throws when that happens. So if you want to coach and teach your kids that, that's fine. If you normally play this game in your club and you tell only the leaders are allowed to move the balls, that's totally fine too. But, the clubbers can go in, get the ball, as long as they come back outside the circle before they throw. That's totally fine. Like I said, circle director, line judges will try to keep the balls moving as best as possible, but they are allowed to do that. Any questions on this game at all? No? All right. Sparky train. Okay, so we're going to be using pool noodles. We've got 5 clubbers. So same rules as before. A girl at the caboose on the first heat, boy at the caboose on the second heat. The line judges will be inside the circle, kind of running with the train. The most common thing that we have to do is stop the train because it becomes disconnected. So even if one kid, falls off the train, let's go, kind of, usually it happens when we're passing other kids, things get discombobulated. The line judges are going to stop the train till everybody reconnects. And again, it's the caboose that goes in, not the whole entire train. So I've had times where everybody goes in, the person in the front goes in. So as you guys are coaching and teaching your clubbers this, make sure that they know. And it's important that the engine runs past the pin, because sometimes they'll stop and then the caboose has to run around their whole train to come in. So, go a little bit past the pin. The line judges will be looking to make sure, again, they kind of go around the pin. Usually most of the pins get knocked over in this game. Again, we'll do our best to set them back up. We're not going to disqualify for a pin being knocked down. But, if the caboose kind of runs in pretty egregiously before they would have gone around the pin, then we're going to have to call disqualification. We don't want to, but, if it's a whole, half of your triangle area, again, that's a 10-step disadvantage to everybody else. So go around the pin, the caboose goes, girl first, boy second. Any questions on this? No? Okay. All right, then we got our last one for Sparks-orama. So the balloon pop. And so the last player is going to be lined up around between the 8-foot line and the small square, kind of where those two kind of meet. The balloon starts kind of at the end. They don't have to be a couple things. They don't have to be spread out like this diagram shows all the way to the corner. I would recommend they're bunched up as tight as possible. But it starts with the person at the front. It's going to be on the back of the neck. We'll blow the whistle, the electronic whistle, and then it'll start. So a couple of things that day of events that coaches have been upset about that they felt they weren't clear on. Number one, nobody has to touch the balloon except the first player and the last player, because the last player is to pop it and the first player is to start with it. I would recommend that not everybody touches the balloon. Otherwise, it goes really slow down the line. So when I coached it, it's player 1, 4, 7, 10, 12, and 15. When we had the big teams, 1, 4, 7, and 10. So the only rule is it has to pass underneath all the clubbers. So either 10 or 5, depending on if it's Division 2 or Division 4 team. First player has to start with it on the back of their neck. Last player has to pop it. So if the balloon pops midway through, each line judge will have one extra balloon that they will insert where it popped. If the second one pops, it's unfortunately break of the game. Unlike TNT, Trek, and Journey, if it pops, they're disqualified from balloon relay. In this event, there's one extra balloon that will get inserted at the pop. I was telling the line judges during the training that I actually don't ever remember a balloon popping. I'm sure it's happened, but as for me, in this event, because we're not rushing through, moving it, grabbing it hard, it's kind of just floating through. The big thing on this one is making sure that as our, I know there's only a select few Sparkies that like to actually pop the balloon. We are going to be watching as line judges, circle directors, to make sure that the butt is in contact with the balloon and the balloon is in contact with the ground. So as long as those two things are in place, if they're squeezing the balloon, that's fine. But what we can't have is butt in the air and they take their sharp nails and they pop the balloon, because the rule is they have to be sitting on it. So if it's a full sit and they jump on it and it pops, that's fine. If they're on their knees, kind of in that squat position, as long as the balloon is in contact with their butt and the ground, and if they're using their fingers, that's fine to pop it. So that's what we'll be looking for. And as long as they kind of take a step back, I know one of the older rule books says it has to be in the triangle of their color. We're not going with that. It's the, in contact with the butt and with the ground, and that, they're kind of not interfering. They don't take 7 steps back and interfere with another team. So usually what happens is, a kid goes to jump on it and the balloon squirts out. They don't have to run back to where they were. They can sit on it wherever they grab the balloon at that point, because they've already attempted to pop it in one spot. So questions on this one? So same thing, girl first, boy second, or different players if you have all the same on the team. Okay, any other general questions for Sparksorama at all? We're good online, anything? Come off mute if you are. Okay, all right, perfect. So this is just a diagram of the TNT circle, just so everybody's aware. We have all of our tape measures, we have diagrams, everything will be set up. Sometimes we're off by a couple of inches, but it's a couple of inches for the entire square. So it's not like, well, one team has a 2-inch advantage. When we are off slightly, it's the whole thing is kind of, if you picture it like a little bit of a diagonal versus a complete square. The circle, we have a circle layer. It's a complete circle. If it ends up turning into an oval, we relay it. That's happened a couple of times, but how we have everything set up. But if you wanted to know the exact dimensions, layout diagram on what that's going to look like, we have that, and that's also on the GLM website. Here's the official journey circle. Again, we have the specific measurements and things like that if you wanted to know. So first one for TNT. So we're going to do TNT and Trek and Journey now, kind of combine. And again, I'll stop between each one for any questions. So beanbag relay. So again, one player in the center. 1 foot must remain in the triangle at all times. The other 4 or 9 players, depending on which division you have, are on the outside of the circle. This game, they do not have to be evenly spaced. They can be all bunched up like you see on the diagram. When we do beanbag in and out, they have to be, and I'll get to that when we get there. But for this one, same thing with basketball relay, which will be the next one we talk about. 1 player in the center. Their foot has to be in the triangle. Again, as I talked about, most common disqualification is that player lifts up their foot and breaks the plane. So the line judge is going to be watching for that circle director. The second disqualification we see with the center player is that they end up knocking over their own touch pin because they're going to be right next to it. And so when we knock over a touch pin or hit a touch pin, signifies you're done with the game. And so obviously if you haven't completed the entire game, then you're disqualified. If the beanbag leaves the triangle, so the big triangle, you're disqualified. So if it is within the triangle, the small triangle, and the player doesn't move their 1 foot out of it while retrieving the bag, they're still in play. Same thing on the opposite side. If the bag goes past the players, as long as it doesn't leave the triangle, they can pick it up and kind of throw it back in. Line judges will kind of stop the game if that happens. The big thing I want you guys coaching your teams on or reminding them, especially the player in the center, if the beanbag goes beyond the center player, it's typically now in the triangle directly behind them. They should not go into that triangle to try to retrieve their bag, because that's going to interfere with the team behind them. This game goes pretty quick, and usually that doesn't happen. But if that goes, just leave the beanbag where it's at. We'll collect it at the end of the game. But just make sure that your team knows that. So the first heat is going to be half the team. The second heat will be the other half of the team. And then the third heat is going to be the entire team when it comes to throwing. So when you have heat 1 and 2, those have to be different players in the middle. Heat 3 can be a different player, or it could be either one of those first 2 players when you're doing the entire team. So questions on beanbag relay?
Yeah, I'm sorry, real quick. You said if it falls on the floor and the center person can grab it, they cannot have their foot leave that triangle, though, correct? So if it's too far
Yes,
for
that is
either
correct.
way for them to grab, we're disqualified.
Correct. Yeah. So if it like drops in the middle, like directly in the middle, the middle player's not gonna be able to reach it because their foot's gonna break the plane, even though they don't have the beanbag. So yes, so they have to have that foot in the triangle the entire duration of the game. Good question. Anybody else? All right. So for Trek and Journey basketball relay, it's the exact same thing. The only difference is instead of throwing a beanbag, we're bouncing a basketball. But all of the other rules that I just talked about for beanbag relay is going to be the same for basketball relay. The other thing too, I forgot to mention that, which is also true in this, is they have to have complete possession of the basketball when they hit the touch pin. So they have to have the ball in beanbag relay. They have to have the beanbag in their hand. So possession of it when they hit the touch pin is the expectation on that. So, yes.
So what's the foot expectation for the thrower?
What do you mean?
So like it used to be Trek would have 1 foot in the triangle, 1 foot out, and
Yes.
have both feet in.
And Journey has to have both feet in.
Okay.
Correct? Is that correct, Tom?
Mhm.
Yes. So the question in here was for basketball relay for Trek, it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So same thing as TNT beanbag relay. For Journey, it's both feet in the triangle. So that's the rule for Journey. So thank you for asking that clarification. Okay, so we talked about basketball relay. Okay, so for running relays, so this is all relay races. So we use a baton. So sprint relay for both groups, marathon relay for TNT, marathon medley for Trek and Journey. So a couple of things I want to talk about. The passing zone, we'll get into that, some diagrams here shortly, as well as the passing rule. But the big thing that I want to just talk about with these events, number one is that when we are passing, we are tapping the kid on the shoulder with our hands, not the baton. Every year I got to disqualify as a circle director, one team that hits someone with a baton, sometimes repeatedly. If that's the case, then you're going to lose your sportsmanship point. So teach your team, if they're going to be passing someone, that it's a tap on the shoulder, and they also don't have to immediately get out of the way. So I'll show you again some diagrams here in a minute. But essentially they have the quadrant that they're in plus the next quadrant to move out of the way. So a lot of times we think, well, I tapped them on the shoulder. Most kids will immediately move to the outside. And that's the expectation. is that the team moves to the outside, the faster runner gets the inside track. And so when they tap on the shoulder, they move. And again, if you're coaching your team right or practicing this, the baton should always be in the left hand, always. And so when you're handing off, you're going to take it to your right, pass it off to your left. If the baton's always in the left hand, you shouldn't have it in your hand to tap the person on their shoulder as they move to the outside. So it all works how it should work. But if they are carrying the baton in their right hand, that's when we get into like an issue where like they're tapping with the right hand, whether it's inadvertent or not. If they hit a kid with the baton, tap a kid, whatever it is, and it's going to be disqualified. Same thing when they're going in for the pin. So if they use the baton to hit the touch pin, disqualified. They're not actually touching the pin. So baton not to be used as a weapon, figuratively, again, on purpose or not. So just make sure that you guys are teaching your team. The other thing is the handoff has to happen within your quadrant or on a three-way circle in your third of the circle. So in this event, we've got the red team, between the blue pin and the red pin is where they can hand off. So if they hand off before the red pin, they're disqualified. If the handoff happens after the red pin, they're also disqualified. Oh, sorry. We need to change a battery on a camera real quick. Yes.
The passing zone, is that the same on a three-way circle too? They'll still have two quadrants or
Yes.
trimesters?
Yes. Two-thirds of the circle. Yes. Instead of half of it. So, and again, I've got a map of what that'll look like. So for those of you online, the question was on a three-way circle, is the passing zone still the current kind of zone? And the next zone, the answer is yes. So you get two-thirds of a circle instead of half of a circle, basically. Good. Okay. The other thing is that the baton has to stay in play. So the other common disqualification that we see is when we go to hand off a baton and the handoff doesn't happen and it falls to the ground and gets kicked outside of the physical square of our playing area. If that's the case, if the baton leaves the playing area, then the team is disqualified. So not necessarily your triangle, but if it actually goes beyond the kind of the color lines that the team is sitting on, then, the baton's out of play. And so therefore the team is disqualified. Sorry, we're readjusting the battery only. Okay. So I talked about this already, passing zone. I thought we had a diagram, but we actually only have it for the line judges. So, but it'll be in the presentation. We'll make sure that we get it uploaded. So here's what we talk about the passing rules. So failure to move when touched may result in disqualification and or unsportsmanlike conduct being called. Unnecessary pushing of another runner will result in disqualification and unsportsmanlike conduct being called. This happened 3 years ago where as a circle director, I didn't want to do it. But I had to. It was pretty egregious on what the clubber did. I understand that the clubber like 4 times tapped and I heard him audibly telling the person, but then he got frustrated and he legitimately shoved the kid like completely out of the way. Kid didn't fall down, but it was very evident that he was using his frustration and anger. Coach didn't agree. That's okay. Doesn't have to agree, but again, teach your kids, that let the judges, let the circle director disqualify the other kids and decide who would have won. If we have to rerun a race without that group in because we couldn't determine what the outcome would have been, that's another possibility too. But the big thing is just making sure that, our kids are not, unnecessarily pushing or shoving. We talked about touching or tagging by the hand, not the baton. Slower runners need to move to the outside. For sprint relay, marathon medley, sprint and marathon races, this is used. Players being passed do not need to slow down. A lot of times they think they need to basically almost move to the outside, stop, and then move in. They can still run at the same speed. They just need to kind of give up that right of way for that. So unsportsmanlike conduct means no sportsmanship points for that event, not for the entire thing. So any questions on the passing rule or those races that we talked about? Anybody online? Good. All right. Three-legged race. So this is the tag rule, which we'll talk about in a minute. Three-legged race. This is really important. Coaches, have your next group ready to go. This is one that we tend to, it takes like forever sometimes. We've had times where like 3 teams are ready to go and we haven't even started putting the band on the 4th team. So again, one coach should be actively in the current game. Another coach should be focused on the next one. Tag rule, which we'll talk about here in a minute. For trek and journey only, if a player falls to the floor, their team is going to be disqualified. So if they go down and their hand touches and they're able to get back up without a knee, hip, leg touching, that's okay. But if they actually hit the ground, any part of their body other than the palm of their hand, elbow would be hitting the ground, then trek and journey are disqualified. TNT, if they fall down, they can get back up, and as long as they weren't passed, they can continue participating.
And bring your own bands. Is a good idea. I will have them there. I just replaced a set because one of them broke when someone borrowed the green one specifically. And so I just said, okay, well, this year's budget, we're going to buy another set of bands. So that box will have a fresh set. We'll get you the freshest ones we can. However, you want to bring your own. Just because, and bring a couple because you're going to want to have one that's in use and the next one you're setting up and various things. Just bring a couple bands. And it does not necessarily have to match your assigned color. It can be whatever is the best one you have in your stock. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, so the tag rule, so it's only used in the 3-legged race, so different than the passing rule. So if a team is tagged by hand or they're passed by another team, then the tag team pass is disqualified. So the tag team should move quickly to the right, completely out of the game square or hexagon. Failure to move when touch may result in unsportsmanlike conduct being called. Unnecessary pushing or shoving of another team will result in disqualification and unsportsmanlike conduct being called. Although the tag team is also disqualified. So all pushing is unnecessary. So as I talked about in our line judges circle director training, the circle director usually can pick up and kind of anticipate, position themselves as much as possible to anticipate when that is going to happen, and try to get that team either into the circle or completely out of the way, depending on where we are in the race. Remember, it's 2 laps, and so sometimes, like in the first even quadrant of the circle, a pass happens. And so we'll do our best to try to get that team out of the race. If it's happening like really close to the end, and the circle director's got to be in the middle to determine first and second place, especially if it's going to be really close. We may not be able to do that. And so we'll do our best to make sure that there's no impeding. We'll talk through that type of stuff. But the goal is to try to get that team kind of out of the way, because typically if they're, passed, especially towards the beginning, they're just going to slow down everybody else, and which could cause the second team to be passed, which we don't want to have happen. Again, if they fall down and they're on the ground and they're passed, we'll try to kind of slide them out of the play either way as fast as possible. But again, sometimes that always, can't happen. And so again, we'll do our best as line judges, circles directors to determine. This is the one event where, somebody falls down, another team trips, someone else passes them. Like if they didn't trip and fall, they would have been passed. There's a lot of different, scenarios that we can kind of talk through on that. Was it intentional? Was it not? Was it just part of a break of the game? That type of stuff. As Dave mentioned, it's important to have really good bands, because if that band comes off, the team is disqualified. So, the third leg breaks. Even if they try to stop and redo the band, they're going to get past, they've now stepped out of what their 3 legs are able to do. So that doesn't happen too often, but sometimes it does. So make sure you have a really good band when it comes to 3-legged race. Any questions on the 3-legged race or anything? Yes.
What happens if they fall down and we're going for the pin?
So once they're inside the center circle, it's fine. So we established that diving for trek and journey is acceptable, but for 3-legged race, only for TNT. Like if they're kind of going for the pin and they fall over, that's fine. Agreed? Okay. So you guys all heard that online. I'll repeat it. So Diving for the pin in Trek and Journey is allowed. In TNT, it's not, with the exception of three-legged race, as they're kind of going in for the touch pin, especially if it's going to be close, they kind of fall into the pin that's accepted. So
I'm sorry, just to clarify that, you said
Yep.
for Trek and Journey, they may dive for every event?
for Trek and Journey, yes, not
Okay.
for TNT.
Thank
correct?
you.
Yes. Yep. Good question. Anybody else online? Any questions on that? Okay. For tug of war for TNT, so this is where for TNT the coach can be kind of where you can see on the circle. Again, for Trek and Journey, no, but for TNT, yes. The line judges will be monitoring the bean bags, and we're going to line the bean bags up right to the front of the line, so they're all going to be kind of congruent. We went through in the training the importance for line judges to kind of make sure bean bags are where they're at. But as a coach, you can be outside the circle to kind of be encouraging your team. It gets a little bit challenging on a three-way circle because we're kind of pulling in a little bit different direction, but circle directors will make sure that they understand and line them up, so they're pulling in the correct direction. Again, coaches will be able to help with that. And then again, line judges will be the ones that are going to be operating the beanbags.
And if there is an error on the beanbag, let the circle director know immediately, and we will rerun. We don't try to do a makeup on that one. I mean, if it turns out that someone misses and has no impact whatsoever on the game, we'll try to fix it and get it up to there. But if it turns out that your beanbag or the one next to you is not the same spot as yours, please jump up and down and let us know. We had someone who didn't tell me until after the event, and by then it was too late to be able to do anything to fix it. But yeah, that's one where please let us know, and we're happy to rerun this one. This one does not take long. So if it turns out that we have to run it twice because of a mistake on our part, we're happy to do that. We would rather do that than have someone walk away very dissatisfied and wanting to quit because they had a legitimate mistake on our part.
And one thing we went to several years ago was we're alternating the small hash marks, white and then the color of the line, so that way it's a lot easier for us to be able to see and make sure that the bag is on the right hash mark for us. So, all right, any questions on tug? The other big thing, sorry, is that the player needs to be firmly in control of the rope and the beanbag. So that's what the circle directors are going to look for. A lot of times, it happens simultaneously fast. I'll tell you from my own personal, and I know Tim and Eric are the same way. Like, if they didn't definitively see that they had control of the rope and the beanbag, even if it was a simultaneous transfer, what I look for and what they look for is, are they holding the beanbag up and do they have the rope in their hand? Especially when the bags get close and we're trying to watch all four teams. We can't see everything. If it's a lopsided victory, it's really easy to determine because we're really just watching one thing. And then again, we try to position ourselves where we think the win is going to happen and make sure we can clearly see it. Doesn't always happen that way, but so just make sure that, your team doesn't stop until they hear the whistle. We'll tell them that too, but that's the other thing, coaches, is you're talking to your teams, make sure that they know, hey, just because some kid holds up a beanbag, like, don't stop pulling until the whistle is blown because they could have inadvertently.
And don't leave the floor because you thought someone else got it if you don't hear the whistle.
Yeah, don't leave the
We
floor.
leave
Tell
that
your
back.
team, like they thought they heard a whistle or they thought the game was over, so they just dropped the rope and went back, and the game could still be going on. And this one, there's different circles going at different times. There's two different whistles, a lot of cheering. This game gets really loud, so sometimes it can be hard to hear all of that stuff. So,
Hey, real quick, if they with their foot have moved the beanbag off the line, will that line judge move it back, or does it stay where it's at until the
good
next
question.
whistle?
Great question on that. Everybody here, I think, heard that, right? And so basically what happens is if they move it forward with their foot, it will stay in that position until everybody else catches up, and then we will move it forward to the current point. So if they hit it with their foot and it goes backwards, the line judge won't touch it until the next whistle is blown or horn, and then we'll put it like on its current spot. So it will always be either at the current spot or closer, depending on how they kicked it every time the whistle is blown.
We will not take away an advantage.
Yes. Yes. So if you heard Dave, the line judge will not take away an advantage.
An advantage.
That
Okay, so if
your
it moves
team
up 2
created,
lines,
yeah.
it stays there until everybody else gets those 2 lines up.
Correct. But if they
Okay.
kick it backwards, it'll stay there until the next horn is blown. Then we will bring it up current to where it's supposed to be.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. So Tug for Journey, same thing, just obviously different strategy, different way the game is played, but as far as kind of the rules and the beanbag specifically piece, it's all the same exact thing that we talked about. So with both of them too, the rope starts extended for both Trek and Journey and this. For those of you watching this or new participating, we used to start with the rope all together. Everyone's right foot was in the middle. We'd blow the horn and everyone would jerk back. And then we had some dislocated shoulders and that wasn't fun. So we start with the rope taut. Circle director will make sure it's very evenly dispersed and distributed. Then same thing with Trek and Journey as well. So, and we do have ropes for Trek and Journey. So we're going to have a backup, I think. So. All right, so balloon volley. So for TNT, make sure that you guys are following based on divisions. Third and fourth and fifth and sixth graders. This is really important. It's important for all the games. I didn't cover that, but obviously, again, younger kids can always play up. Older kids can't play down. So we have third and fourth graders. It needs to be third and fourth graders. If for some reason you don't have that on your team, and you only have 1 third and fourth grader and everyone else is fifth and sixth, that's something you need to communicate to us ahead of time via email. And then also on the circle, it's going to be really important if you have that situation, because what we don't want is for this to be perception or like the other coaches didn't know, hey, this team doesn't have, enough players. So Dave's going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah, oftentimes, I mean, again, this can be one of the times that if it turns out you have a small fifth, sixth grader, that may be the better alternative to other things. But if it turns out you have a kid who is bigger than I am, and they're a sixth grader, and we want to put them as a third grader. No, we've tried people try that. No, don't. We'll probably borrow from the other section because we'll probably have 2 flights. The other thing too is that if you look into the circle there and you see where the green is up across from the green line, you don't have to be there. You have first rights to that spot. If you choose to set up somewhere else, so that you're opposite your color, which is the way that it used to be a rule, you had to have someone there. You don't have to. You can put them anywhere you want to. But if someone comes up to there and is from the other side and they're stepping there first, your first choice is to be able to have your spot there. If it turns out you don't have it and somebody else wants it, they can take it. But you have the first choice of it, not required. Because sometimes too, if it turns out that you've got some kid who's 7'2" and that happens sometimes. And you said, I'm going to be opposite him because I know that he's going to win the top and I'm going to be on the opposite. That's fine. And this is also one of those few occasions where your kids may need to be directed a little bit more closely, like stand here. If a coach needs to come into there because of a kid who needs that direction level, for the 5 seconds, you can step into the floor, get them to where you want them to be.
Thanks, Dave. The other thing I'll add to this event is, no grabbing of the balloon, no kicking of the balloon. Obviously, when it's on the floor, things happen fast. But if we see that there's intentional kicking, as circle directors, we'll stop it. We'll come back to the middle, and then we will kind of restart at that point where someone either grabbed it. And usually that happens is someone hits it, and the kid is like shocked because it hits them in the chest, and they just kind of grab it. Not on purpose. We'll stop it right there. And then we won't reset like at the start of it. circle director will run over and just throw the balloon up. So because the same kids who were kind of there will still be the same kids in the middle. So that doesn't give an advantage to another team that, you know, can now reset their players, and now we're closer to one side or the other. So if there's a kick, or again, an inadvertent or even intentional kind of grab, you know, we'll just throw the balloon up and just keep playing on that side. Line judges will be at the corners or on the thirds on a three-way circle to kind of judge where it goes over, you know, kind of on either side. Only one time that I can recall where we had to just evenly distribute the points because it literally went right over the corner and we couldn't determine, either line judge or circle director, where it went. So we just split those points among the two teams that were on that corner. So there's some strategy to this. Again, we have kids like who look to be Sparky age all the way up to over 6 feet tall over the course of the years that I played. And so, you know, kind of like Dave said, if you have a plan on where you want your clubbers to start and you realize there's a 6'6" guy coming out and you're like, we need to readjust this, that'll be totally fine, you know, as coaches. And so you guys will be able to see at the beginning of the meet too, kind of, you know, height wise and things like that. And okay, that person's definitely going to be on tug and that person's definitely going to be on balloon volley. You'll be able to see that. So figuring that stuff out. So so on a three-way circle, so this kind of shows, this is, again, this is where we get the most confusion. And as circle directors, we will make sure before we start the event and then also this specific game, we will make sure, same thing with tug, hey, you're not pulling down your line, you're pulling down this white line. Your coach will be, you know, right behind here. And then this one is where people get a little bit mixed up, because if you can see here on this, you know, the blue team, almost all or half of what their space is actually over the green line, but some of theirs is over, you know, some of red's is over the blue line in this example. And so if the balloon goes over the blue line in the red's kind of third, it's actually red point, but there'll be pins lined up. We'll clearly communicate to you coaches, to the team, to your teams, to make sure that they understand, you know, where the break is in that. So any questions on balloon volley? Okay. Beanbag bonanza. So, oops. Okay. So beanbag bonanza, it's showing on a journey circle on here versus the regular circle, but this is the one game where the team has to be evenly spread out. So it doesn't kind of show it very well on this diagram, but the middle player needs to be right in the middle. And then the rule is an arm's length apart. So which would be one arm's length like this, but the middle player must be lined up in the middle, and then we kind of distribute. If you want it more spread out, that's totally fine, but at least one arm's length apart. That way they're not all bunched up together. So the circle director, line judges will kind of stand in the middle and, all right, middle kid, you're here. And then you can line up on either side of that to make sure that that happens. So for TNT, in this one, the bag must be placed and not thrown. We did change it for Trek and Journey to align with Summit, that it does not have to be placed. So I'll repeat that for Trek and Journey. The beanbag still must be placed on the ground before the other one picked up. It can be simultaneous motion, but it cannot be dropped or thrown down. For Trek and Journey, it can be tossed as long as it stays within the triangle. Correct?
Yeah, the point was to make it easier on the line judge. You know, if you want to toss it into the triangle, yeah, tell your kids to do that. But if it slides out of the triangle into somebody else's zone, you just got disqualified.
Yep. Yes. So if you're Tom, you know, this is a decision for the line judges to make it a little bit easier. And again, we've always decided for Trek and Journey, we're going to follow Summit rules. So for TNT, beanbag has to be placed on the ground, picked up. Trek and Journey, it can be tossed. But again, as Tom said, the same rules apply with the triangle. Has to make sure that it stays inside the triangle. Again, on the line is acceptable. Over the line, we had one where the beanbag was kind of, you know, like this, and like its corner was clearly over the line, even though it wasn't touching the ground. It's an invisible line all the way up. disqualification. And again, line judges, circle director will kind of stop that team, point to where the issue was, from that aspect. So, any questions on Beanbag Bonanza? Yes.
I'm not sure, maybe I'm reading into this, but I don't know if we're going in order of event right now, but I believe Beanbag Bonanza used to be after or before the four-way tug. Has it changed?
It is, yeah, it is before the four-way tug.
Okay.
Yes.
Just checking.
So the question for those of you online that was asked here is Beanbag Bonanza. It will be before the four-way tug. So you'll see in all of our emails and communications. So we have the list of events kind of in here. It's also back on there. We just did it a little bit differently on here, just kind of based on rules and time that we thought it would. So, but yes, you're correct. All right, then we have Trek and Journey Agility Race. So this one goes really fast. It's pretty intense. You can see on the little diagram here. They start, kind of on their color, outside the circle behind their line, kind of make this pattern around the agility pins and the touch pins and the outside circle pins. And so, make sure you guys practice this. It's really easy with all the pins to kind of get confused. Again, line judges, circle directors will be focusing on making sure that they make that pattern. Essentially, they're going inside and outside of every pin that is, within the circle and obviously within the playing area. So, again, with Trek and Journey, diving is allowed for all games. And so usually this one goes pretty quick and they're jumping from the white line, like think the Michael Jordan dunk from like the free throw line. That's what it looks like sometimes, which is a lot of fun to watch. But this one goes really quick and is a lot of fun. So any questions on agility race?
Yeah, just because we haven't played this. With the touch pin is what they're that's what they're going in around,
Yeah,
but then that's also what they're hitting. There's not an additional pin.
yeah, so they're going around their circle pin. So I don't know if do you guys see my cursor online? Can you see? Probably not, but
Use the back cursor to do the animation again,
oops.
backwards.
Okay. So if you kind of watch the diagram here, hopefully you can see. So they run around the outside pins. Yep. And then they run kind of in between the orange pin and the touch pin. And then, yes, they're coming in for their own touch pin.
Okay, so they're going around the orange pin and then there's their color touch. I didn't see those. I just zoomed in. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Anything else? Good. Okay. All right. Then we have balloon relay. So this one will be our last game for both TNT and Trek and Journey. Really important to understand the rules of this game, especially if this is your first time competing. A lot of disqualifications. It's the last game, so a lot of times it comes down to how this game goes. So balloon has to go through 4 different pairs of legs each time. So the 4 players in zones 1 and 2. Only the players in zone 1 and 3 are required to straddle the line, and only while they're passing or receiving the balloon. There's no minimum distance and no requirement that everyone touches the balloon for TNT. So they can be bunched up, they can be on top of each other, but the most common 2 disqualifications in this one is the player in zone 3 that's on the white circle comes across the white circle before they have possession of the balloon. The second disqualification is the first player in zone 1. They drag their foot behind them as they're passing the balloon and they cross that 8-foot mark. And it's going to be longer. It'll be really easy to see, but those are the 2 most common disqualifications that we have in this event. So practice, repetitiveness will make this game go well. What typically coaches will do is that if you're new to this, the second player will actually stand in front of the 8-foot line. They'll have like their back heels on it. And that teaches the player coming around to kind of line their heels up with that toe, and that ensures that they don't ever cross that line. So it's really hard to do because they usually spread their legs really wide to go under as they're coming around, and that back foot drags behind that line before the balloon. So something to keep an eye on for that. The only difference for Trek and Journey is that you can't have any bunching. So there's no bunching, and then we use the circle as zone 1 instead of the 8-foot line, and then we kind of have an outer line when it comes to that. So we're not going to have this diagonal kind of triangle looking thing. We're going to set up a the Trek and Journey circle on the current square, but we will have hash marks that align with the same footage marks with this. So,
And one of the rules that we of course have, if the balloon leaves the square, it's a disqualification. If it turns out that we're already on the far edge, on the outside, there's not a lot of room for error. So if you lose the balloon and it goes back behind, you're probably going to be going over that line. So one of the things that and as a line judge, if I can't see that it actually went over the line, I'm not going to call it. However, given the speed of this game, you might, unless someone else disqualifies, you're going to be done anyway. Still retrieve it. Don't just let it fly behind. And where you retrieve it, we'll try to see where you are as best we can. But if it turns out that, like if the line is here and you catch it here, your feet being out of line is fine. Out of bounds is fine. It's where the balloon is. And if the balloon crosses it, then we're going to have to disqualify. So just if it does fly out for whatever reason, just go ahead and follow it, grab it, and we'll try to be able to do the best we can in terms of seeing whether or not it was out of bounds.
thanks. All right. Any questions on balloon relay at all? Yes.
Sorry, can you clarify that last point on every player must have sole possession?
Yeah. So for Trek and Journey, each player has to, unlike TNT, where typically players 2 and 3 don't touch the balloon. In Trek and Journey, each player has to obtain, retain, and deliver possession of the balloon. Yeah. Yes.
If I remember right, the line judge stands on one side and you want number 5 to always run up to number 1 on the same side of the game.
It's your choice.
Well,
So-
your choice as the circle director telling us now.
Yeah, well, there's you can decide if you want to run up the right side or the left side. Just the line judge needs to know before you start, so
So
they
all-
can position themselves
All
on
the
the
kids
correct
have to
side.
run the same side.
Correct. Yes.
If they don't, we're not going to DQ.
Yeah, you
I
just
don't-
might run around the line judge. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that might be in the way. If it turns out that 3 of them are running, 4 of them, one runs the other one, and you run into the line judge, that's the breaks in the game.
So for those of you online, 2 questions in here if you didn't hear them. Number 1 was just clarifying point number 3. As you heard me for TNT, typically players 2 and 3 don't touch the balloon, so not everybody has to. But Trek and Journey, everybody has to kind of retrieve possession and then pass off possession of the balloon, which is also why there's no bunching allowed in it. And then the second question was, what is the rule or what is the determination on run if your team runs? The player runs up the right side or the left side. There is no rule on that. You can do either one. You just need to let the line judge know before you start which side you're running so they can position themselves on the opposite side. And what Dave was talking about is if you have, 4 of your players run up the right side, because that's what you've told us you're going to do, and then the last player runs up the left and happens to run into the line judge, it's just the breaks of the game. So teach your team either the left or the right. It doesn't matter. Just communicate that to the line judge up front to make sure we position ourselves in the right spot. So, yes.
When can the kids leave the line so the last player can run straight for the net?
As soon as they have released possession, so they can do it one at a time. So the question was, when can the players move out of the way so the last player can run straight up? Soon as they have kind of completed their task for that balloon. So they can do it at the same time. They could do it one at a time, based on that. So yes.
I don't know that this has happened, but if a balloon floats away into a different team's zone, do they have to just stop and leave it because it would be an
Yes. Yeah. Good question. So a question came up, if they lose control of the balloon and it goes like into where the other team's playing area is, cannot retrieve it, because then it will be impeding the other team from that aspect. So, and then the other thing is, I know I mentioned this earlier with the Sparkies, but if a balloon pops, it's just the break of the game. So what we've done in the last, quite a few years, we use the same color balloons, because we had one year where one of the colors, like, they just kept popping and it wasn't fair for that team. So our goal is to use all the same color balloons. So they're all the same, out of the same bag, the same age, the same everything. So that way, it's not like, well, the red ones keep popping, or they were made thinner, or whatever the case may be. So we'll do our best to make sure we do that. So, all right. Anything else? Yes.
Question, you said that the games are on March 28th. Is that confirmed? Like, there is no,
Yes. Yep.
seriously? Because on your website, it says March 27th.
Which one, the Saturday?
Which is a Friday.
Well,
That is my typo.
we know why, because we tried talking to a lot of the churches and even helpers can't be available because it's spring break. And I know the initial contact person at Moose Heart said the entire month of March was open. And I know March 7th for other people it's not available, but the 14th and 21st was open.
So no, the 21st is Summit. So
I
don't know.
understand it's Summit, but I also know the church is involved with Summit and in our area especially, and that wasn't an issue this particular year.
Okay. I'll let Dave pick it up. For those of you online,
But
if you haven't heard, so we're just talking about the date. Right now it's slated for the 28th, so I'll let Dave kind of take over.
Yeah, I can always ask and see if they can change it.
Well, we have churches that can't participate on 28th, and we have volunteers that can't participate on 28th because of spring break. And we have churches who said, if it's not on spring break, we can come. So
Okay.
that's where.
It would be, well, yeah, and it would be really nice if
First.
instead of talking to others, if people tell me. I'm just saying that
No.
because I was told not to do it on the summit date, which is the 21st. The 14th has another thing that people were unable to be able to go to because it had a middle school event that we're trying not to counter program against, that had things coming into there. So if it turns out that summit is not going to be a problem, we can find, like, I don't know, are you going to summit this year?
I guess not.
I will check with the contact and see if it can be changed to the week before, to the, would be 20th or 21st, whatever the Saturday is, 21st.
Yeah.
I will check with them on that one and we'll post it up on the screen. But again, if it turns out that there's discussions going on, this date doesn't work, this doesn't, if this is the first I hear about it, and I respond to messages, the only time I was delayed responding to one of the messages that came in on it was when I was literally on the video camera at church on Saturday. And that waited an hour until the service was over to be able to respond. I do actually go to bed very early because I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So if it's after 8:30 at night, you may or may not get me to respond that night. But I will check with them to see if it can be the week earlier. But again, one of the things that's been coming up a lot is, oh, so-and-so says to do this. Well, I don't know how hard it is to type my phone number in for texting versus other people's phone numbers. I don't bite when I get texts or emails. But other than spam calls, which you just saw me pushing off. And even then, I'll probably check my voicemail and see if they left a message because it could possibly be somebody into there. But rather than stopping anyone here, I'll do it later. And so that's kind of one of those things that I'll check to see if the date can be changed to the other date. As of Wednesday, when the person who coordinates it responded to me, after sending a couple of follow-up messages, that's the date they provided. So I'll check with it and see if it can be pushed the week earlier. and then we'll get back to you.
I had a quick question. Are there still girls teams and boys teams for TNT?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Yes.
Is the address for the new venue already on the website?
But Moose Heart is basically the address, the Moose Heart campus. They don't, their website doesn't actually put the street address on it. In that case, it may be because of their security. But I'll have as close to the street address as we can get.
Okay, it's just called Miss Hart.
It's Moose Heart, yeah.
So the question came up for those of you online, if you didn't hear it, the specific address or specifics around Moose Heart. So we'll make sure when we update the website that gets taken care of.
Technically, even though they're not a municipality, Moose Heart has their own zip code, and you mail something to Moose Heart, Illinois at their zip code. So you put in Moose Heart in Google Maps or MapQuest or IMAP, and you'll get the main entrance. On the GLM website, if you click on the link for Moose Heart, I have that going to Google Maps for the front gate.
And that's what they have said is to go to the front gate and they'll have signage.
Yeah. I could not find anything that actually points to the field house itself. So, yeah, and no building clearly marked, and I didn't want to just, oh, I think it's that one. I'm going to put it there. I figured I'll just give the front gate and then we'll have signs. Moose Heart it's a huge campus. It's
1,000 acres.
Yeah, it's a living facility. It's technically not an orphanage, but think of it like Boys Town. So it's got its own grade school, middle school, high school, homes. It's got a Catholic chapel and a Protestant chapel. It's got all sorts of, if you ever see moose lodges around, that's where their fundraising goes, to Moose Heart and other programs like that. All right. Any other questions?
I just got an email again saying that the event that we're scheduling around has changed from when I last booked, and that the 14th may be available also. So I'll suggest those two dates. Because when I have to go off of what's on the websites for these things, and if it turns out that they change, I don't have it set up to be able to go back and look back again. So
Okay.
we'll check with them.
So we're working on the date. Bottom line, we're working on the date. As soon as we have a date, we'll open up registration. I will also update the GLM website as soon as we know, and I will change the current one back to pending. Anything else?